Hi, I'm Aisha Formanski with Beaducation.com, and today I'm going to show you how to shape and rivet to make a really cool ring design. This is an intermediate level class that's going to use texturing, stamping, and riveting to complete the project. Now, if you're not familiar with these techniques, pop on over and check out our free class category. There's lots and lots of classes there that'll get you prepared for this class. Here are the tools and materials you'll need for today's class. Fine point permanent marker, a ruler, metal shears, heavy-duty flush cutter, 1.5mm hole punch plier, large wrap and tap, ring mandrel, sandbag, plastic mallet, riveting hammer, sanding stick, needle file. We're going to use riveting tiles in this class to assist us in riveting. This is a 0.5mm thick riveting tile, which is a 24 gauge blank. And this is a 1mm riveting tile, which is an 18 gauge blank. These riveting tiles will assist me in trimming the rivet wire down to the same length every single time. I'll be using a strip of 24 gauge sterling silver that I cut down off a larger piece of sheet that is 7mm by 65mm in length. I'll be using this little tab, which measures 5mm by 15mm, which is actually one of our blanks just cut in half. But you can also use any other little blank to bridge the gap on your tab ring. And 1.3mm nail head rivets. Here we have the ring band and the ring tab. As you see here, I've already textured and stamped the word lucky into the ring band. And on the tab, I have the letter B with two little dots on either side of the B. Now for the measurement, I have this piece of sterling silver 24 gauge, which measures 7mm wide and 65mm long. We're going to talk a little bit later about how to size the ring to fit you just perfectly. And for the tab, this is 5mm by 15mm. These are what we use in class today, but feel free to make the ring thinner or wider, make the tab longer, shorter, whatever you want for your design. Let's talk a little bit about why I textured and stamped the ring band before I measured it to the length that I want for the ring size that I want. Now, when you texture and stamp those letters, even though we're creating all these indentations, we're not removing any metal. It's just being manipulated and pushed out, so the metal actually grows a little bit. So if you were to do all of the stamping and all the design after you cut your length down to the measurement that you want, you wouldn't have the measurement that you want anymore. So make sure to do this all before we cut it down to length. All right, let's break down how to figure out the length of the metal that you're going to need for the size ring that you want. Here is a breakdown of the math of how to find out the length. So what you do is you take the inner diameter of the size ring that you want. In this case, it's a size 7, and we find that measurement down here on the chart, which is 17.35, and we add that to the thickness of the metal. We're using 24 gauge, so that's about 0.5 millimeter. That equals 17.85. And then we multiply that by pi, which equals 56.05 millimeters. Now, when you go to trim your metal, of course, it's going to be hard to get that 0.05, so don't worry about it. Just do the best that you can. As you see down here, we've done the math for you. But if you change any of the variables, make sure to reference back up at your math. And remember, this information is on the class detail page as a PDF. Let's measure our ring band. We are making a size 7. So we're going to measure this ring band out to 56mm. Now you may see that I already have a mark here. And I wanted to double check to make sure that it was correct, and it is. I previously marked it because when I stamped, I wanted to make sure that my word was still going to be centered in my band. So there we are at 56 millimeters. Take your shears and cut your ring band. Now, I want to press that if you cut this a little too long or a little too short, you can be making a ring that's a whole new size. So measure twice and cut once. There we go. And let's make sure we're still at 56 millimeters. All right, we're good to go. Before we shape the ring band and the tab, we want to go in and make sure that we don't have any sharp corners. And actually I do on all four, especially these two, because we just cut it with the shears. So I'm going to come in with the file, and starting at the tip of the file, I'm going to push forward or pull the metal down towards the handle. Now you'll see my motion is in a rolling, rocking motion. Just like this, I'm just knocking off that sharp corner. Remembering that I took all this time to measure this specifically to 56 millimeters. So I'm being careful not to remove any metal off the length, only the corner. All right, that feels pretty good. All right, these are a little sharp. And I'm going to do the same thing on the tab. Let's assess the sides of the band as well. We want this to fit comfortably, so we don't want any sharp edges. Sometimes when you cut the sheet metal with a shear, you can create a very sharp edge that even sometimes has little rough pieces of metal sticking out, so you want to be careful of that. Run your finger across it. Sometimes you'll need to come in here with a file to remove any large pieces of metal. This feels pretty good. I textured it with a chasing hammer, which actually softened the edge a little bit, but if you feel just a little something here, you can come in with a sanding stick and you can just knock off the edge here. And that'll soften up the metal. That's nice and soft now. So I'd go around and do this on the back and on the front so you get a nice soft edge. Let's punch the holes in the tab in preparation for riveting. As you see, I've placed 2 marks using a fine point permanent marker where I'm going to place my rivets. Now make sure they're not too close to the edge. And let me show you a little trick about positioning your hole punch plier to create the hole exactly where you want it to be. Now if you look at the hole punch, here, let me clamp it on here. Then we'll bring it up to the camera here. If you look at the punch, do you see how it's cut? It's cut at an angle downwards, and the punch is hitting the metal just right there on the right side. Now if I angle, you can see the dot that I created with the marker. To get the hole exactly where you want, have that pin hitting the side of the circle that you created. Just like that. And then squeeze. Lightly remove the tab from the hole punch plier. There you go. Do the same thing on the other end. Making sure that the pin is placed. A little off there. There we go. Pull this off. If you haven't used these hole punch pliers before, you may notice that I have a little piece of paper here that's a little piece of business card. And what that is doing is it's preventing this the little stump that the pin is mounted on. It's preventing it from marring and marking up the metal as I punch it. Now I know you really want to punch the holes in the ends of this band now, but wait. First we're going to shape it, and I'll explain why later. So bring in the large wrap and tap, and I'm going to use the center mandrel here to shape or begin the shaping process. So what I do is take the end of the band and place it in the jaws of the wrap and tap, and begin to shape the ring band like this. We're going to flip to the other side. Do the same movement. Bring the ring band together like this. And now it's just we just do little movements, slowly bringing the two ends together. See how we're getting closer and closer? We don't need to be too worried about this being perfectly round yet. When the ring is totally complete, we can always go back in and true it up and make it perfectly round. But for now, we just need to get those two ends together. When they start to get close like this, I step down to the smallest mandrel here. Just very lightly pressing the two ends together. You can even, when we get this close, just with your hands, overlap the two ends together, like this, and pull them apart. This part's a little putsy, but it's important that the two ends to come together nicely. So take the time to really work the metal. Till you have the two ends together, just like that. Next, we're going to shape the tab. Place the tab in the wrap and tap on the medium mandrel again. With your thumb, just slightly pull it down. And then flip it over. Do the same thing again. Ideally, you want the curvatures to mimic or match, just like that. So next, I'll show you how to rivet. We are now going to place a hole in one side of the ring band to rivet the tab on. But before we do that, let's make sure that my letters here, okay, Lucky and B, are facing the same way. Rotate this over and get this into position. I'm going to use the holes on the tab to assist me in placing my first mark on the ring band. I want to make sure that my tab is center so that the seam is going through the B, and that my tab is also centered on the sterling silver band. So see, I'm doing some final little corrections there. Now, if you have any space between the two ends of your band. During this part, just hold the tension together with your fingers. You're going to use fine point permanent marker and pass it through the hole that you've already placed in the tab, down to the ring band below, creating a little mark. Remove the tab and come in with your hole punch plier again and punch this hole. And then very lightly remove the ring band. Now we're only going to rivet the one rivet on this side first. And once this is completed, we're going to come back in and punch the hole on the other side. The reason this is when you rivet, things tend to move and adjust. So we want to plan ahead for that. So let's bring in the ring mandrel and sandbag. And I like this little trick. What we do is take the nail head rivet and thread it through the back of the ring. It's a little tricky sometimes, like that. And then take the ring mandrel and thread the ring on. You want the ring band to give you enough resistance for riveting so that the nail head on the inside is making contact with it, but you don't want to bring the ring band so far down the mandrel that you're now stretching your ring out. And then place the tab on, making sure my lettering is still correct. Just like that. Bring in your riveting tile, thread it on to your nail head rivet, and trim it. Remove the riveting tile, and with your riveting hammer, we're going to flare out and splay that little 1/2 millimeter of material. I always rotate my piece. This helps me get a nice consistent flare. I'm not sure if you can see the flaring, or what I call a little mushrooming that's happening there, but it is there. So I need to flare a little bit more material, and then we'll drive it home. Now I flip the riveting hammer to the rounded side, and I'm just going to drive the remaining material down to the ring band or ring tab. I continue to strike it until the metal is nice and smooth against the tab there. This rivet is now complete, and we can rivet the other side. Before we do that, let's make sure that nothing has moved. So this is still, it's looking nice and straight, looking pretty good there. And let's punch the hole on the second side. When you placed your ring on the ring band, you may have accidentally stretched it a little bit. So if you have any spacing on the inside here, now is the time to place a little bit of tension. Make sure those two ends are together. Then thread the punch through the hole of the tab and punch. This is creating the hole in the second side of our ring. Remove that. Come in with the second nail head rivet. Thread it through. Place the ring back on the ring mandrel. Now we can press it down on the ring mandrel. We don't have to worry about stretching it any longer. Bring the riveting tile in, thread it on the nail head rivet. Flush cut. Remove the riveting tile. Come in with your riveting hammer again and rivet your second rivet. All right, the tab is riveted on. Now let's true up this shape a little bit. Place the ring back on the ring mandrel, pressing it firmly down. And then with the plastic mallet, I'm just going to lightly tap the ring band. Rotating the mandrel and therefore the ring. Then take it off and flip it. Alrighty, the ring is looking good. It's round. The two ends on the inside are flush together. The tab is riveted on and pretty much in the center. It's looking pretty good. Next, I'm going to oxidize it and polish it.